Hey there, and welcome to Culturally Sound. I'm sitting with Dan Nixon from Nixon Media, and we're just going to talk about his story, where he started, what got him here, and where he's going with it. So, Dan, do you want to give a quick intro to Nixon Media and where you started and how you got here?
Sure, sure. Um, so Nixon Media is my own marketing agency. I would call it, a boutique marketing agency where I started in 2018, mainly just kind of as things organically grew in my career in the marketing world. I was getting more and more questions from friends, family members, or even people I've worked with in business, just asking for sort of advice or pointing them in the right direction from a marketing, I would say, consulting aspect. And then there was some inquiries about, hey, could you freelance? Could you maybe do this for me? Could you do that for me? What do you think I should do? Things like that. So it kind of was, I guess, the light bulb started to go on there, where I said, okay, this could be something that I could do on the side where I was working in corporate world. And sort of, that was my moonlight of 5 till midnight or whatever, and weekends. And it was always a passion. I always really liked marketing as a whole. Even when I would, study in post-secondary school and all that, there was always sort of, when I got into the marketing things, I could just tell it was a natural fit. Um, yeah, and sort of that's kind of progressed over the years to where we are now. And I provide fractional, essentially head of marketing or CMO services to small, medium-sized businesses or enterprises that are looking for a marketing leader, but someone who can kind of like outsource a lot of the fractional marketing team outputs, like let's say a graphic designer, copywriter, content management, social media, things like that. So as opposed to, I think a lot of businesses have a tough time getting a full team on board because that's a heavy investment from a capital expense standpoint. So I provide a solution that essentially allows them to have a head of marketing that's going to kind of advise them and obviously capture what their needs are and make sure there's a fit, but then mitigate expenses with sort of just a nominal fee that they would pay a month, as opposed to having to pay a full, as we all know, team of employees, benefits, tax, all the necessary compliance contributions that you have to make. So yeah,
Right.
that's kind of where we are now.
And where did you start with that? What instigated that initial bite to sort of step into that space and that role, and what brought you from there to here? Where did you start?
Sure. Well, I mean, my starting point was, I'm trying to think of a year, but it was probably in 2014.
Okay.
I was working for a company that sold basically the 360-degree digital marketing solution. And I worked in a sales capacity, and that's kind of what it got my first exposure to the world of digital marketing and marketing as a whole. And after that experience that I gained there, as we all do, we kind of go and grow into different skill sets. So I went from that company into some sort of more startup agency world, where it was kind of, I think it was a bit of the dawn of where we are now. There's a lot of marketing agencies that exist. So I kind of had different roles, and it evolved to like, not just selling, to business development, to account management. And overall, what happened was I just had a passion for marketing, and I had a passion for the knowledge behind marketing. And, all of a sudden I just noticed I started consuming content all the time, whether it was my subway ride down to the office, or, getting ready in the morning, or out for a walk, or I'm at the gym, I'm just listening to YouTube videos and podcasts and people talking about marketing. So I think I started to just really feel like in my soul, I had that entrepreneurial spirit, but I also had that marketing and sales acumen that I had real life experience with. So that was kind of the progression that led to where I'm at today.
Right. Interesting. And what do you think is most interesting, or where do you think you're going to take it tomorrow?
Well, I think the most interesting thing is marketing, and I guess probably, interesting synonymous with motivating, is it's a fascinating industry that's constantly evolving. Like every day there's something new. And I mean, to even think, as I was just mentioning, what was going on in 2014, which was kind of this dawn of all these little agencies popping up.
Mhm.
And then where we are now, 10 years later in 2024, about to be 2025, it's pretty insane if you think about not just tech and how tech has been leveraged in the marketing industry, but the general approach and concepts of how marketing is done. So the most interesting thing to me is always staying relevant, always trying to stay as current as possible, which no one ever really can, but you can do your best. And that to me is kind of just making sure you maintain an open mind. And you're always thinking, I know I'm doing things this way, and I know I've done it and I've gotten to this point by doing it this way, but tomorrow all that could change. And of course, we live in the world of AI. We live in the world of Chat GPT, and now all the disruption happening in the industry of search engines and everything like that. So being in the marketing space, it's like, wow, do you ever have to make sure you're current, not just with something like AI, but even tools that have existed in the past, changes to algorithms, changes to the overall, aspect of what you work in. So, and then what was the second part? So most interesting. Oh, tomorrow.
Yeah.
I think where I would want to go tomorrow is, and I understand, if I understand correctly, it's kind of like what is for the future. I think my future vision in terms of visions for tomorrow is having, it could just be me in my business as it is, but if I had to state the dream would be I have a team. I start to directly employ people. I start to provide numerous individuals and their families and their extended loved ones with ways to provide for themselves. But that's kind of the heartbeat and the soul part of it. But it's doing marketing in a different way that I've been exposed to in my experience as a direct employee. And I'm not saying past agencies or past experience was negative. It's more, I just always found that there was a way to do things that kind of was a bit of the industry norm. And I would love to have an agency that delivered for clients, but prioritized employees and prioritized their happiness and prioritized giving them the ability to grow, the ability to develop. And, at the end of the day, if they want to go start their own thing the same way I have, that is essentially being fostered. It's almost like a sort of a hub for people to cut their teeth in marketing. And then if you want to grow within the company, fantastic. If you don't, by all means, I would love to see you go and start your own thing and build that building right next to ours in our little area of marketing, companies that exist in the world.
Like some sort of an incubator per se.
Incubator, thank you. Yes, I couldn't think of the word. That's exactly it. Yeah. Yeah.
That's right. And so, I mean, inherent challenges in that, right, is how do you balance keeping your team, building it, growing it, and creating something of your own, right, Nixon Media,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
giving them the wings to, step out of the Nixon Media nest and start their own baby. What challenges do you foresee or do you experience currently with sort of employee or team member engagement and bridging that gap?
That's a really good question. I think the first challenge is the ego one, right? Where as my own business owner, as kind of running my business, there's a selfish desire to keep people, right? Because you're thinking, I've got my roster of 10 people, and if I lose two and I go down to 8 because they had to go follow their passion and do what they believe is meant for them, now I'm down to 8, and I may have lost 2 superstars. So there's the selfish part where you're kind of like, I don't want to lose you. What can I do to keep you? Right.
Right.
And what I've learned in my experience is the vast majority, high percentage of time, you can throw all the money you want in the world at them. I'm not saying I have or I am, but you could. That's kind of the immediate ego response of, well, look, I get it. It's obviously something to do with compensation and finance and being able, but the real truth is you have to let them go fly on their own and do it. And they may go try it and realize this is not for me, right? There have been many times where I myself have been kind of alone as it can be in a business ownership role, an entrepreneurial lifestyle, and everything's on you, right? So to keep them engaged and to keep the team members within my roster. I think really my approach has been, and for better or worse, I'm not saying this is right or wrong, and this is not just in what I do now, it's been what I've done in the past where I'm managing a team and they might go to a different team or they might want to transfer to a different city, whatever it may be, a different office, right? I kind of look at it and I'd say, I am only here to help you grow to be the best person you can be outside of just professionally. And if that leads to you becoming someone who has reached their cap within my office or my team, and you're ready to go and take that next step, fantastic. One of the people I look up to in a big sports guy would be like Bill Parcells, and he talks about those who follow. And you kind of look at his coaching tree, and there's a lot of really, Bill Belichick is one. Like there's just a lot of coaches that followed him, and he knew my job is to help them develop as a coach, to give them little tidbits and little snippets of, I see you're growing, and I see on top of your immense talent, you eventually will be leading people. And I need to start giving you tidbits of advice and little, almost like, hey, see this situation? This is what I believe is the right way to handle it when you go into this position in your future, because I see that for you. And what you're doing is you're really preparing people, because it happened to me. There have been numerous leaders, present company included, that have kind of had a good intuition for when is the right time to have that little side comment or side conversation saying, see how this is happening? When you are in my position, or when you are in this position where you have to make this decision or you have to handle this situation, this is the way to handle it, so that your people trust you, so that your people believe in you, and they know that you're not just out for yourself, you're out for them. And that means they may grow. So from an engagement standpoint, that's the I would say more the leadership and heart and soul part of it. And then there's obviously the tangible asset of that person, and sort of how you help them understand how they can grow in their skills. So that's more technical, right?
So you said something that sort of piqued my interest, the trust factor, right?
Yeah.
And it seems today, particularly to me, trust comes from believability, comes from relationship, comes from a strong touch point muscle. The more you work it, the stronger it gets. You can't tear it apart, because trust is like a sheet of paper, right? You crumple it up. As hard as you try, you'll never get that perfect smooth paper again. So you have to be very careful with it, and not get into betrayal, and be above board, and speak with kindness, humility, and be believable. So how do you build that trustful relationship with individuals, to really have them believe that you're not just out for number one, that they are number one? Because we know that people don't really care unless they know that you care about them. So how do you model that? Because you spoke a lot about modeling and mentoring and developing. So how do you build trust within your teams?
Gosh, the first thing I'll say is it is extremely difficult. It's probably one of the most difficult things anyone will undertake when they reach a position of leadership at any level. You mentioned believability. So one of sort of business/life books of Bible that I believe, that I really endorse, and I think everybody should at least try to get through. It is a heavy read, is Principles by Ray Dalio, and which he talks about exactly. Yeah, somebody might have introduced me to that book. And it was kind of one of those books that it is, at first, it was heavy to get into, because you're kind of really introducing yourself to some extremely high level concepts in terms of, I would just say, from an emotional intelligence standpoint. It's not intellect, it's emotional intelligence. And then, so he talks about believability in the book. And believability, is a scale. There are people that you trust because they bring a certain degree of experience. They bring a certain degree of historical evidence that they are someone you can trust. And it's a balance, right? There's a number of other things that contribute to it, but that's how I approach believability. Now, when it comes to establishing trust with your team, there are other schools of thought, one of which, and I'll give another plug for somebody that I would say is a critical juncture in my leadership growth in my career and as a person and how I approach a lot of things in life. It's Patrick Lencioni, and he talks about the 5 dysfunctions of a team and essentially that pyramid where the foundation is vulnerability-based trust. So the foundation is trust. It's the first level, but it's based on vulnerability. And a leader who struggles to be vulnerable will always struggle to get the level of trust that one needs to build a highly functional team versus enter the situation of having a lot of dysfunction in the team. Now, I personally have seen my teams that I lead or manage be dysfunctional because looking back on it, I was like, you know what? I definitely I was not vulnerable with them. And that takes a great degree of courage as a leader. It's very lonely in a leadership position sometimes because you believe this is right. Everybody around you is saying, no, it's not. But you just have to go with what you believe. At the end of the day, you can't compromise that. Now, it doesn't mean you are right or wrong. What I'm saying is being vulnerable to say, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm struggling. I'm completely in over my head. Nobody, and we've all had this, those listening, us present, wants a leader who will essentially have the approach of, I am completely infallible. I have no flaws. I never make a mistake. I'm never wrong, right? Because that is leading more so as authority and it's almost dictatorial. It's like, I need to know that my leader will come to me. And I mean, I'm referencing even an example Lencioni's given. It's kind of just like, nobody likes a leader that comes in when everything's going wrong in the company. The stocks are plummeting. Media is saying, oh my gosh, this company is having all these problems, blah, blah, blah. And everybody in the company is very well aware of what's going on and its morale is at its lowest. And then the leader comes in and goes, no, everything's perfectly fine. Everything's great. We're good. Everything's going to be fine. And it's like, to a degree, I understand why somebody would say that. But at the same time, you're basically telling your people, I'm not willing to sit down with you in the mud and say, hey, like, isn't this terrible? How are we going to get out of this? So we can solve the problem collaboratively versus the leader that comes in and is like, sweaty armpits and like stressed out. And they're like, check this out. Like, I am stressed. And I think that allows people that you're trying to lead to see that you're human, to see that you're flawed and you will make mistakes and you're not perfect. And sometimes you don't know the answer, but then they go, okay, I'm willing to help you. Like maybe somebody who is, I don't want to say subordinate, but somebody who's like entry level has a very unique perspective and a very unique opinion or way of looking at things that nobody at all the higher levels has even thought about. Mm-hmm. And it's not it's not an intelligence thing. I think it's just that person saying, the leader saying, if we're going to trust each other and if we're going to have trust in this team, I need to be the one that leads with vulnerability, mm-hmm. Meaning I don't know. You guys tell me what you think, and we'll try to solve this together.
Being able to listen to alternative perspectives and take that information in, process it, come to a resolution, share that resolution with the team, just as a, get that feedback loop in play, and then, agree as a team. Mm-hmm. If you can come to consensus. I mean, if you can't come to consensus, then you need to pick a path as the leader and say, okay, here's our next steps. We don't need to all agree, but we do all need to march together forward. And if the wheels fall off, we're gonna hop out, mm-hmm. and put the wheel back on, and maybe we take a different road or a different path, but we're all going to do it together, and we're all in this together, and we're all aware of the plan, and we're all going to follow through on this plan. And there isn't going to be any side conversation or any commiseration of the team around how, oh no, I think that was a horrible idea. We're going to bring all those to the table up front, but those questions have to be asked at the front, right?
Yeah,
To create that trust, as you said, that everyone knows what's going on, or at least they have the same amount of information that leadership does in the path that they're taking. So
exactly.
great point, and I think there's value there. So with all of that said,
Hmm.
and with where you want to go, what challenges do you expect to face as you head towards that goal of building your own agency that's supporting, nurturing, incubating the great marketers of tomorrow? What do those look like?
Yeah, it's something I think about often, because I deal with, especially in this industry, it's a kind of,
High
sexy industry
turnover.
to work in.
High
Yeah,
turnover. Yeah.
right. And the younger generations, graduating with a ton of skills, um, but with that, a ton of pressure on themselves to all of a sudden be, a CEO in 5 years. They have high pressure internally and externally to grow very fast.
Mhm.
So the challenges that I have experienced and that I foresee continuing will be helping younger generations understand, be patient, give yourself some time to develop. You may be the smartest person in the room. That's quite possible. Okay. But on the other hand, I believe the famous quote is, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. Right. And what it's saying is, like, it's not measuring your intelligence against others. It's being ready and to continuously put yourself in a position where you can learn from others. Um, because younger, the people that I've worked with, and I have worked, and I currently work with some incredibly smart and talented people that, um, I know, when they hit my age, I'm 40 years old, but when they hit my age, they are going to be so far beyond where I am, which is amazing. I'm super excited for that, because that's, at the end, it's like a kid. It's like, I want you to be better than I was at my age, right? When you reach my age. So it's, the challenge is in instilling patience, because I remember I wasn't patient even to this day. The other challenges are, there are so many options, and there is so much, information and option overload. I mean, you even look at the world of, younger generations dating, younger generations, how they establish and create and cultivate friendships and relationships. The same thing happens in the workplace. You have, essentially, a very, almost a binary approach to, you fit all the criteria or you don't, therefore we can't be friends. And that means in the workplace, it's like, you fit all the criteria of having the same opinion as me, or you don't, and therefore I can't work with you. You're not somebody that I can have a future working relationship with. When, as we were just discussing, the true, um, functionality in the workplace is differing opinions that are willing to hear each other out. And we live in a very divided world right now.
Yeah.
And that does infiltrate the workplace. And there is that constant struggle of the way I see things, the way somebody else does, the way I always have done things and I think things should be done, the way that somebody else views as the way things should be done, or the way we should do things as we move forward. Um, so that kind of, I'm not sure if I answered the question directly, but I think just from a challenge standpoint, it's, um, helping those grow, while balancing some patience, and then also, um, for Nixon Media and for the team that I would love to build and I want to build, it's, fostering a collaborative culture that encourages a diverse perspective, um, while collaborating to provide solutions, right? Internally, and of course, at the end of the day, to clients, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So, hope that was a good answer.
Well, I mean, if it wasn't, it was a very eloquent word salad. So,
Yeah,
um,
I got one thing going.
I guess, um, you know, I think the idea of full time has sort of shifted, in the last 4 years. The
Hmm.
40-hour work week, the working for
Yeah,
one employer,
yeah.
and how that all maps out. So how do you manage, as you sort of suggested to the people coming into your agency, to be patient when that's the dynamic of the I don't know, some refer to it as the gig economy.
Right.
It's all fractional relationships, and how do you grab, when you see talent and you want to have it a part of your team, you know, do you do you usher them out the door, or you suggested creating space for them, and you know understanding that path. How do you create that path for their success?
Yeah, I think, as you were saying that, I was thinking about the gig economy, right? And then you said it. I think that's just the reality of what we're in right now. As I was saying in the previous, response to the question, is, there's so many options.
Hmm.
So the truth is, we now live in a world where anybody who has any type of skill sets or skill set specifically has a multitude of options. And quite frankly, my perspective is this: who am I to tell someone who is a social media coordinator that they can only exclusively work for me and I need them for 40 hours a week? Now, there is obviously balance where I have a deliverable, or I have essentially an objective that I have to achieve on behalf of a client, right? Because you need to keep your clients happy. So there is that part of it where you can't compromise that. But at the same time, if somebody can get something done in 20 hours and they can then dedicate the other 20 hours of their week, or as we know in the gig economy, and I believe I've seen numerous, whether it's videos or whether it's articles or blog posts, whatever, talking about the fact that most younger generation, young professionals, don't work a 40-hour work week. They work 50, they work 60 hours. But what they do is they do 15, 20, 15, something like that, right?
Right.
Which I think is amazing. Okay. I fully endorse and encourage that. And so the way I look at it is I say, look, I have to have a degree of knowledge of what I need in terms of output from this specific person or this specific department, whatever it is. And if that can be done in 20 hours, and every week or whenever they are evaluated in terms of that cadence, like, did you deliver what you said you would deliver on time? And you're telling me you only did 20 hours? Thumbs up. That's fantastic. Okay. If you want to go then do all like two or three other clients and work for them and do the work for them, that I have no problem with that. So long as there's not the obvious compromising of perhaps conflicts of interest or entering the same competitive market, whatever it may be, right? There has to be a degree of business ethics established between us. That being said, and I go back to kind of a statement I was just making, which is, like, who am I to tell anybody who's an employee that, like, you work for me for 40 hours a week, therefore I own you. Like, you now can't go and find other means of income, means of pursuing a passion, because that's how I got started and what I got started. I was working in corporate world, and I said, okay, I have to respect my obligation and my commitment there. But I'm going to also respect the commitment to myself to hopefully one day be able to work for myself. And as long as the commitments are met, as long as the obligations are maintained, and there's no drop off in that agreement,
Okay.
I'm fine with it. Yeah.
So, I mean, you referenced, and this might be an unpopular opinion, perfectly comfortable with that. The whole idea and concept of labor by the hour, trading your
Mm,
money. Um, you know,
mm,
and I've been a strong advocate of stepping away from that for years now. And even in a previous life,
yeah.
working in an industry that was absolutely governed by hourly work, you know, I really brought a new perspective to how to frame those relationships and those agreements around
Hmm.
the production, and valuing and putting a value on the production rather than the time spent. So, I mean, perhaps that's what you described. You step
Right.
away from, oh, I'm going to give you this amount per hour, this amount per month, Whereas it's more, getting this accomplished for this amount of money, strongly aligning with the gig
Yeah.
economy is more of a framework for something like that. So how do you, when you're not diving into creating media and
Hmm.
marketing campaigns for your clients, what else are
Hmm.
you getting into to fill that spiritual cup of yours?
I mean, um, I have a mental. Everybody has their escapism. Mine is at least 4 to 5 times a week. I'm exercising. I'm physically active. Now that could be going to the gym. That could be going to play a round of golf. That could be playing a sport in general. It could be going for a walk for 25 minutes.
Mhm.
It could be stretching outside, whatever, right? So that's one thing that I do to make sure that I stay, to a degree mentally sane and just keep that balance. Um, and I think, you bring up a very good point with regards to, I think the shift because of the gig economy has started to rather progressively move towards not evaluating things on an hourly rate cost benefit analysis, right? Um, I personally tell a client, hey, these are my services. Now, obviously, because I'm more boutique, I can tailor it based on what their needs are.
Mhm.
And I basically say, okay, look, like for what you're asking me to do, this is how much it will cost you on a monthly basis. Now, have I done my cost of goods sold and have I done my calculations as one would as a business? Of course, right? To make sure that obviously I'm covering my time. But but you know, I will say this, okay? My time is of course valuable, but it's also malleable. And I know that rhymes. So what I'm getting at is relationships are the essence of business. And so if I have a relationship with someone for a decade, hypothetically speaking, and we've worked together and we've been through the mud together, we've gone through economic downturn together, we've gone through, whatever it may be, the blood, sweat, and tears that you could metaphorically say. My rate for them is probably going to be different than it would be for someone who's a brand new client. And that's not to insult the brand new client, nor is it to say to the um, existing long relationship tenured client that they're getting preferential treatment. It's it's
Trust.
the malleability. That's right. And it all comes down to um some people want to evaluate it on an hourly basis. I'm fine with that. That's their choice. I personally don't. I say if a lawyer tells me that they're X amount per hour, let's say they're $1,000 an hour, um, I'm obviously right away going to go, this person must be one of the top in their field. Now, if I get lawyer legal services that are, not to what I believe would be $1,000 an hour, I might sit there and go, okay, this person, why are they 1,000? But then that lawyer is like calling me, how you doing during this process? How are you feeling about things? There's more than just the tangible technical skills. Now, obviously, I'm talking about a lawyer, so there's quite a severe baseline there, I would say, right?
Sure.
But I've had personal experience where dealing with one lawyer and another lawyer, there's one that was thorough, there's one that was detailed, there's one that would make sure they were educating me because a lawyer is a lawyer. They know the law. I may know a certain point of the law, but there's a point where they know way more than I do. And someone who takes the time to explain and takes the time to give care to their client, their customer, whoever it may be, um, is going to, in my opinion, bring an intrinsic dollar value above and beyond what I would say is the baseline. And I use the lawyer example because I think the same exists in marketing. Every marketing agency these days says I can do website, I can do SEO, I can do content, blah blah blah.
Mhm.
But what are you doing beyond that? Okay, and that's where I whole valuation goes into a more circumstantial evaluative process where it's like I'll pay this person more because they are so much more caring, they are so much more of a pleasure to work with,
Mhm.
as opposed to this person who is not a pleasure to work with. And I'm sorry, I'm just not going to pay you that rate. I wouldn't. You are equally, maybe even smarter than this person, but you're just, I hate to say the word, but maybe you're an asshole. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah, there's,
Yeah.
there's there's that asshole fee for sure.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's sort of a nurturing relationship. right? Where
Yes.
they're willing to take the time and model and develop and nurture and educate and do all of the peripheral and tertiary things that build that trust relationship. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so any other ventures or any other opportunities that are in front of you that you're excited about um, lead you to look towards a brighter tomorrow?
Yeah, so I've been very fortunate in my life that I've met some pretty incredible individuals, and one of those downstream impacts of meeting these people was getting into the nonprofit world. So I'm on the board of a charity based out of the United States called Creators of Hope. Um, that organization's primary mission is to provide homes for individuals in need, which currently focuses on or in Jamaica,
Mhm.
the southern coast of Jamaica, which most people would know was recently hit by Hurricane Beryl very severely.
Mhm.
It's an agricultural, farming, fish, very much focused sustainability community that we do these home builds in. So that has been probably since the inception of Nixon Media and how that has evolved to now provide me with the ability to, work remotely and work for myself and all that, that has been in parallel with the purpose behind what Creators of Hope does and establishing, I think, a greater purpose for myself, which is beyond running my own business and, the financial gains and the perks of that and the freedom and all that. It's also the freedom to understand, there are a lot of people in the world that just quite frankly have a more difficult day to day than most, and giving those individuals a leg up, has been probably one of the most fulfilling and renewing journeys I've been on in the past 10 years at least, and it's really heartwarming. It's fun. So that's kind of my brighter future. I would love, and the goal is for that to kind of become the 1B to the 1A. And if eventually it becomes the thing where I can just say, this is where my life's purpose is, and this is what I'm going to do full time, then even better.
Right.
Because it's seeing people who feel unseen, which is a saying that we have, and it really does leave every time I go down to Jamaica and I meet with the people in the community who have welcomed us and the others in the organization. You just kind of come back with a renewed perspective of what's important in life, especially living in the first world bubble of Canada or wherever I may have traveled in the United States. You kind of just see, like, people are complaining their Starbucks is taking 20 minutes or 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's like, goodness, like, the happiness and the general gratitude and joy for life in these areas that are underserved is really awesome to see.
Throws in a unique perspective for sure. So something that
Mm-hmm.
you said there sort of spoke to me, serving and seeing the people that feel unseen. You know,
Mm-hmm.
leadership lesson from those experiences. I always say the first 90 days is the most important when you bring a team member in. The first 90 days is the most important when you initiate a cause such as what you're talking about, right? That first response.
Mm-hmm.
And this is going to be a bit of a stretch, but work with me here. So as you
Sure.
bring the team member in, you want to make sure that they're not trying to fit in and they're not trying to find their place. You want to make sure that they feel like they belong, and you're seeing them even when they feel like they're unseen, right? And I'm
Absolutely.
not looking to create a parallel of, people that you're building homes for within Jamaica and people that are, first time on the job. But it's interesting that you
Mm-hmm.
say that leadership mechanism through philanthropy
Mm-hmm.
did you take any lessons from your experiences with Creators of Hope and layer that into how you manage your team? Is there a
100%.
okay, cool. Well,
100%. Yeah.
talk
I
about
would, sure. So I would say, um, I would agree with you. The first 3 months, or give or take, however somebody would define it, that onboarding time and that introduction, that integration into the greater family that you're trying to integrate them to of your business, is critical. And I personally have experienced the welcoming nature within Treasure Beach, where we go and we do the work in Jamaica. Um, I have personally experienced at all levels, whether it's um, Herman, who runs a smoothie stand, or another gentleman or another woman who are kind of leaders in the community, very sort of like, high impact, highly influential individuals, whether it be politics, all that, and they all welcome us, and they welcome us the same way. There is such a kinship that is extended, and so what I learned from that was, my goodness, you see someone who could be a headmaster at a school, running a tourism business, developing land. Like, this person has so many things going on that you then meet with them for the first time, and they ask you to stay and dine over lunch with them and their family and their extended family. And the lunch is actually a birthday celebration for one of the people that have worked for them for 80, they're about 85 years old. And this person's worked for them for 34 years. So you're really in this intimate setting of like, oh my goodness, I have never had somebody extend an invite. Like, because where we come from in Canada, it's kind of like, okay, hey, nice to meet you. But this is for the,
Yeah.
the close family.
Yeah.
The folks there will just be like, you're here. And again, that's one example. The other example is, we will do essentially a job site visit, but it's a property visit for potential recipients. It's part of the needs assessment process. And every single time, whether it's before we build or after we build, because we're going and visiting someone from a few years ago and say, hey, how are you doing? Checking in on you. Everything okay? Maybe they have a couple things that need some touch-ups on the home. Maybe they don't. But it's mainly just to check in on them. They will refuse to let you leave without, let me serve you some watermelon. Let me make you some patties. Let me show you what I've done, and the immense pride that exists. Again, I know I'm kind of going into a bunch of different directions as examples, but what I'm getting at is, if you take that example and then you essentially extract it, place it in the context of business, that is the type of environment that is going to foster retention. It is going to minimize attrition, and you are going to create a collaborative culture where, I think you said, they don't want to feel like they're trying to fit in. They feel like they have fit in.
They belong.
They belong. Thank you. That is exactly the type of, and honestly, it's not even, I don't even think it's like intentional. I think it's just simply, it's just, hey, you're another human being. You're here to do what you're supposed to do, and you're welcome. You belong here.
You're seen.
You're seen. Exactly, right? And I think that applies in every aspect of life, but just to compare those two, like how it happens in Jamaica, or my personal experience, and I've seen others have the same, and then translate that into how it works in business. I think that is ideally the type of culture. If I was ever having a 20, 30 plus in person company, I would make sure that is something that is a focal point for whenever somebody is joining the company, joining the business as a new employee or a new member. I stray away from employee, but a new family member, a new team member, whatever you want to call it.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, there's a large push away from communicating that your company is like a family, right? Because we don't fire, we don't let go, we don't lay off our brother, right?
Right.
They're
Right.
always in the family. So,
Right.
is it more like a high performing team, right? Like a baseball franchise, right?
Right.
Where
You're an asset.
yeah. And I like the idea of it being a close knit family, and I'm a big proponent of retooling and really, so there's a couple concepts here. One is hire slow, fire fast. And
Hmm.
I totally see and understand the wisdom there. However, I think you need to have some checks and balances in place before you fire fast, because your commitment to that individual cannot be let go of so quickly, right? And if you're firing fast, it's because you haven't lived up to the commitment that you made to them. You haven't showed them that you care about them, so they don't care about you and they're underperforming. And maybe there's a communication item that really needs to be further discussed there. Might be an unpopular opinion, but happy to discuss it. The other
I would
thing is,
challenge you.
yeah, go for it.
Sorry.
No,
I
this
would
is
challenge
good.
you on this.
Okay.
So, so I'm a big fan of Gary Vaynerchuk. Now, contextually, I think I understand what he's saying. So I would agree with you on the first part of not necessarily hire slow, but really have a thorough, effective process for your hiring.
Mhm.
Which means if it's thorough but it's effective, it should also be efficient, equaling speed.
Okay.
Okay. Now, he has a saying that I personally believe it's hire fast, fire faster. Now, what I'm getting at there is I think a lot of it as a business owner or as a leader is intuitive. I could be wrong, and I've made my fair share, and this is not perfect, but what I feel has worked best for me is I can feel probably in the first 5 minutes of speaking with somebody in an interview that I'm potentially hiring that's a candidate. I'm like, this person's the fit. Now I might interview 10 people and I'm
Okay.
like, these three were the best. They like within 5 minutes, I knew they were the fit, and then I got to pick one, right? So that's where I kind of go into maybe more technically, like how did they answer this? What experience do they have here? Whatever it may be, right? What are they bringing to the table from a technical skill set standpoint? But then the fire faster part of it to me is I will also intuitively know. And there, I mean, I have real life examples. I probably can't say them, but I do, where within a week, I'm like, this person will last. They will
Right.
be gone before probation ends. They will be gone. And again, did I fail them in not probably really extracting it? Yes. But I think we also, again, live in this world where the hiring process has become so homogenized where you're applying on LinkedIn and the applicant file is like resume, maybe a cover letter, and then virtual interview, in person interview. What's the decision? Right. Where for me, once I get you in the job site, or once I get you in the workplace, I will be able to tell very quickly if you're going to last. And that's just my opinion. I'm not saying one is right or the other, but I believe hire fast and fire faster. Fire faster means basically the longer you drag out letting somebody go with the, and this is where I'm saying I'm challenging you with the superimposed guilt of it's my fault. Now,
Okay.
yes, there's ownership in that for sure. You should take ownership. You hired the wrong person. Now you got to fire them quickly, and then you got to figure out who you're going to replace them with. So
Mhm.
you've created, in fact, another layer of work. That being said, I believe that's better than dragging it out for another week, another 2 weeks, maybe another 2 months,
Sure.
trying to force them to fit when you maybe know right now intuitively you're like, this person's just not going to work out.
Yeah, no, interesting. So I think really where it comes down to is um, fast is a subjective term, right?
Yeah, it's relative. Yeah.
Let's say you know, if you communicated expectation, you've set them up for success. You've hired
Mm-hmm.
the right person. You've through the interview process, you made sure that they were, Patrick Lencioni, ideal team player, right? And
Mm-hmm.
they're
Mm-hmm.
in the game now. And the first, you did it all right. You had someone introduce them to the team. They felt like they belonged. They had a clear understanding of the expectations. Their KPIs are clearly laid out. They understand what levers they can pull to enact benefit to the team. They understand how they contribute to the growth and the development of the team, but they're just not a fit, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely, fire
Yeah.
fast. Let them go and share them with the
Right.
competition for sure. However, when those steps and those processes aren't in place, you
Mm.
you've made a commitment to an individual that you believed was good enough to come onto your team. And I feel that you
Hmm.
owe it to them to, you know, sit down with them, reframe expectations, make sure they're set up for success and
Hmm.
incremental success. You can't just abdicate that responsibility. You've got to take that on as a leader to ensure that they're a good fit within the team and they feel like they belong. They have a clear understanding of what their responsibilities are,
Yeah.
and blah 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 blah. So that's where I'm saying, maybe the fire fast isn't necessarily the best bet if you've run through those responsibilities and you've taken true ownership of that hire. Agreed.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
in my experience, most people are driven in such overwhelm in today's society that they don't have an
Yeah.
opportunity to really understand, and that trust isn't there for that
Hmm.
new team member to share with them their concerns, their questions. They don't have anyone to ask questions to. They're trying to fit in because they don't feel like they belong, and all of a sudden they're out of a job and they've
Yeah.
turned down two other opportunities because they felt like this was a good fit. So it's
Well, that's where the opportunities, see, that's the thing, right? And I think so. First of all, I would agree with you that, look, I mean, respectfully, most companies don't have these processes in place in their
right,
hiring.
right.
Now, to your point, I think um, the hiring process, as detailed as it can be, is somewhat malleable based on the subjective position. If I'm hiring an entry level person at, I mean, I'm just going to throw a number out, but let's say I'm
Right.
hiring an entry level person at $20 an hour, my hiring process, while hitting the steps, needs to be condensed.
Okay.
Okay. From an efficiency standpoint, right? Because I can't spend the same amount of time hiring this is my opinion, but I don't believe in spending the same amount of time hiring somebody who's entry level because I'm asking them to basically occupy a role that has some somewhat rudimentary or basic skills and
Mm-hmm.
abilities
Mm-hmm.
versus I'm hiring a corporate level executive. I'm hiring the chief marketing officer or the CFO or whatever it is,
Sure, sure.
even a director or manager. That process has to be somewhat more prolonged because maybe I do need to meet this person. If it's a CFO, maybe I have to fly them in and I got to go have dinner with them and I got to really get to know this person because I'm going to be working basically hand in hand with you. And you are going to have a crap ton of autonomy and authority. You're essentially handling a whole division of my company, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that that is a malleable thing. Um, but at the end of the day, and I would say I didn't say this, and you brought it up, and I would say you're spot on. They've declined two other opportunities to take yours. So you need to take ownership and responsibility of that. So I personally believe, and again, it's not something that I have yet to be able to practice because I just simply haven't had the facilities in place to do it. But fire faster should also mean this isn't going to work. We're going to help you find that next position.
Interesting.
We're prioritizing getting you that other position. We know we picked you and you picked us, which is more important, right? You picked us. You came in here. This is not working out. You and I both can see this. We're having this open conversation. The trust is there where I can say it's not working out. You're just not going to be a fit. But that doesn't mean you're done today. That means we're going to help you find the next role. And here are two or three others. Now, obviously, that expands what the responsibility is of the business and the business owner or the business board, whatever it is, to say, hey, if we're going to do that, we got to make sure that we have a network or some contacts in the industry.
Interesting.
So this is where I think HR has to take a bit different approach than what is traditionally and even to this day current, which
Mm-hmm.
is, well, the person didn't work out. Here you go. Perhaps you've been here 2 months, but we hired you and it's not, we're going to give you some severance, whatever it may be. But that person's back in the same position they were. They've hit the reset button on their job search. If you were the company, and you could even say this, I think businesses could leverage this as this is why you should work for us. Not saying we want it to happen, not saying it will. But if it does so happen that you are let go either now or you are let go in the 10 years from now,
Mm-hmm.
we will help you with your next role. We will help you find the next role that is best suited for you. Because maybe I hired somebody to be, a a salesman, and he's actually better suited to be a marketer. Maybe I hired somebody to be a marketer, but they're better suited to work in finance. I don't know,
Sure.
but that's all I'm saying. So,
Yeah, I mean, pie in the sky type stuff to a certain degree, but I
yeah.
think like you're onto something, and I think the reality is you don't hire people that you don't like, right? And when you hit that crossroad, and you both agree, you know what, this role probably isn't a good fit. Where do you want to go from
Mm-hmm.
here? And there's there's
Mm-hmm.
at the very least a conversation that's had of, I can introduce you to this person, this person, this person. Would you like the introduction? And if
Yeah.
your, the termination of the relationship is wrong term. Maybe if the end of the relationship within your organization is the beginning of a good fit in another organization, you're able to bridge that gap and give them a leg up, right? And it's just
Yeah.
not trying to be right, but get it right. And
That's exactly
I
it.
think I think that's, if the person is just, as you say, an asshole, then, good
Mm-hmm.
riddance, and, share them with the, your competition. But
Yeah.
if, it truly wasn't just a good fit, and
Yeah.
you want to make that right. And I think participating in that and being participatory in that, if both parties want to be participatory in that,
Yeah.
I think that's a good step in the right direction.
Yeah,
Well,
and just quickly, my closing thoughts on that are I know
yeah,
it's very utopian, but
sure.
like you asked me earlier what my vision for the future and tomorrow of like Nixon Media would be,
Yeah,
that would be it,
yeah,
right? And to your point, sometimes you're just going to hire a guy that's going to turn out to be an asshole, but that's where I would go, we missed this somehow. How did we miss this? We have
right.
really, really messed up here.
Mhm.
So, but it is a utopian sort of very, like you said, sunshine
Doesn't
and rainbows,
doesn't have to be.
like but wouldn't it be beautiful to have a company that does that,
Right.
right? So
Yeah. No, that's great. So, um, how do we learn more about Nixon Media? How do we learn more about COHJ and uh,
mm,
the creators of Hope detail that you spoke to? Because I mean, what a great cause.
yeah, yeah, awesome. And thank you. So Nixon Media, obviously, there's the normal socials. So Nixon Media on Instagram is NXN_media. Anybody who does go, please don't judge me. It's been neglected from a social media standpoint, which is not something a marketer should be saying. I just underwent a total kind of rebuild of my website as well.
Good for you.
So because it needed to be fixed. So there's still things that are work in progress there. So there's Nixon Media, obviously on Instagram, as I said, NXN_media. And then there's the same on LinkedIn. So you can find me NXN Media. You'll find it. And of course, Meta, like with Facebook, I've got the same handle. And then with Creators of Hope, there's official Creators of Hope on Instagram. We've been posting quite a bit of content there, which is why Nixon Media is probably so dormant because the focus has been there. And of course, there's creatorsofhope.org because it's a nonprofit. As a side to that, there's also the sort of luxury voluntourism that we are trying to create, which is a separate entity, but it is intertwined with Creators of Hope, which is creatorsofhopejourneys.com. Creators of Hope is targeted more for everybody. And it's not to say one is inclusive and the other isn't, but Creators of Hope Journeys is essentially a luxury voluntourism. So folks who would like to travel, or their children who are probably 17, 18 years old, entering post-secondary education, or in their late 20s, would like to go and travel and do some good anywhere in that age range. They get to come down, they get to contribute to the cause by building a home, or perhaps helping build some playground equipment, or even just community cleanup. Anything that we can basically sink our hands into, we're happy to do it to help the community and help give back. And they spend 4 days doing that. They'll spend another 4 days experiencing local culture. So it's not the sterilized, homogenized, sandals, and nothing against sandals. I love a good sandals resort, or Iberostar, or any of those resorts. It's
Right.
you're not just stuck on a resort. You get to stay at a very nice accommodation, and you can be in this beautiful area of Jamaica with absolutely incredible people who are, as I described previously, extremely friendly, welcoming. You're safe, and you get to have authentic Jamaican experiences. That would be through Creators of Hope journeys, creatorsofhopejourneys.com.
Beauty. That's awesome. Well, we'll get those details in the show notes, and hopefully
Sweet.
we'll get some traffic on it. Thanks very much,
That'd be
Dan.
great.
Appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks.
Blessings.